Okay, right, so we'll move on to item 4 then, which is the first of the reports. Just before I sort of hand over to you to update us on this, this falls under the item of, or the area of safeguarding vulnerable people from extremism, and obviously within the police and crime plan, it is one of the priorities within there, and clearly as the Police and Crime Commissioner I do receive fairly regular updates through different forums around the work of the North East Counter-Terrorism Unit, and how we in this office work with yourselves to look at how we can work collectively with our partners in trying to prevent people getting involved in this type of activity in the first place. But obviously what you're going to report on is the work that you are carrying out, and the some of the excellent initiatives that are ongoing, working with our local authorities, but also with some of our academic institutions, and how we can take this work forward further as well. So with that, I'll hand over to
just by way of introduction, and bearing in mind people may be watching, obviously sadly we've had a number of attacks in the last 12 months. What we want to brief you about today, Commissioner, is some of the work that's been ongoing since we last reported to you around prevent and trying to reduce the risk of people getting involved in extremism. So I'm going to hand over to Russ and to Nick. What I would say is that Nick has been working tirelessly on this on our collective behalf right the way across the region, and I know that we've got some interesting initiatives to talk to you about.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I'm the Chief Officer Lead for the North East Counter-Terrorism Unit, which covers the 7 forces in the North East of England, and I've got responsibility for the coordination and delivery of the government's contest strategy, which focuses on prevent, prepare, protect and pursue. I've got Nick here today who leads on my behalf in terms of the prevent element of the government's contest strategy, so he will go into the finer detail. But as you're aware, 2017 has been an unprecedented year for attacks on the UK mainland. Clearly we started off with Westminster Bridge, followed by London Bridge, Borough Market, Finsbury Park Mosque, the Manchester bombing, and then more recently Parsons Green. Clearly the threat remains at severe, which indicates that an attack is highly likely on the UK mainland. The threat still exists from Al-Qaeda, but moreover from what we call spontaneous volatile extremists. There's some significant challenges in terms of individuals who had aspirations to travel abroad to join ISIS, who find it increasingly more difficult to travel. They are inspired by radical preachers through the internet to perpetrate attacks on the UK mainland. We've also got the potential threat around individuals returning from Syria and parts of Iraq who again may be inspired to perpetrate attacks on the mainland. So as a consequence, that threat does still sit at severe. So in terms of more locally then, Nick, if you want to take over and just give the Commissioner an overview in terms of what we've done to date and what we've got planned for the future around the prevent element of the contest strategy.
Okay, thank you. I suppose I'll start by saying the challenge that we have right across counter policing is breaking the momentum now of the number of attacks that we've had, and the fact that individuals will feel emboldened by what they've seen in terms of successful attacks to go on and carry out other things. And from a prevent perspective, obviously our work is very much focused around our community relationships, our partner relationships, in order to stop people at a very, very early stage from getting on that radicalisation path and journey. So you won't be surprised that everything that we do is pretty much bound up in a very local delivery model, and the approach that we've taken over the last 12 months has been to continually enhance what we've done through a number of academic studies, some of which have been funded through the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, and we're very grateful for that support. But just give you a sense as to how that's coming together then. So I suppose the important thing as well is that all of that work, as we start to layer it up, has been used to inform and influence how we then judge our success across individual districts and down to neighbourhood level. So for the last 12 months we have supported the local accountability process in each district to look at the work that's been undertaken at district level. At the moment we've got ongoing a series of video briefings to frontline officers, which I'll come back to in a minute in terms of where that stems from, some of that information. We've had an officer who's been over and worked in Pakistan through the Foreign Commonwealth Office that you're aware of, another project that you supported, which has enabled us to start to tackle some of the negative influences and some of those extremist speakers that Mr Foster talked about, who influence communities very locally within the UK, and particularly within the Bradford area. And already we have received assurances of the condemnation of the murder of Asad Shadi Ahmadin, a Muslim shopkeeper up in Glasgow, who was killed by an individual who came from Bradford, and something that had been lacking previously within the community and within the cultural support for that sort of atrocity was a lack of condemnation by senior figures based in Pakistan who have a far-reaching influence within our local community. So getting that condemnation has been really significant, and we'll continue to work with the Foreign Commonwealth Office to look at other projects and initiatives that we can undertake with them. As we move forward, then the work to, I suppose, refresh and update and deliver a new approach to neighbourhood policing across West Yorkshire is something that we're very much part of, to ensure that local neighbourhood profiles will reflect the risks of radicalisation and extremism in each neighbourhood policing team area. And that will enable us to then support through local, more bespoke training, briefings and information, the work that's required of frontline neighbourhood officers to support what we're doing. That work is then bound up in a number of projects and initiatives. So I touched on a research that we've supported which looked at online extremism, and we've done work with Bradford University that has unpicked cases where individuals have sought to travel to Syria historically and looked at the influences and the things that motivated them. So which extremist speakers, how was the information accessed, how did it change somebody's behaviour, at what point on their journey to becoming extremists could that information have been picked up and identified. All of that learning now is being built into training for prevent officers and frontline neighbourhood staff. We've met last week with Bradford University to plan the next stages of that work, which will involve further case studies, including extreme right-wing case studies, to further understand and evaluate the journeys that individuals go on. Because one thing we do see is no clear linear route, no path that an individual takes to getting there. So the more we can analyse the cases that we have dealt with to properly understand that, the better. And that will also help and support investigations colleagues in understanding how they go about investigating and then interviewing individuals who may be arrested further down the track if we've been unsuccessful. The big piece of work with Huddersfield University, which I alluded to in the report, that has identified the journey that an individual will go on when they were seeking to raise, share, report concerns about somebody they're very close to, is a really, really important piece of work. It's got now national interest, right up with Assistant Commissioner Mark Rowley and Deputy Assistant Commissioner Neil Basu in the Metropolitan Police, looking at how we can expand this nationally. But that piece of work has identified the journey that individuals will go on, who they are likely within their communities to try and seek advice and support from, that may or may not enable them to come forward and make reports to the police. So in identifying those groups of individuals, we're now working with Huddersfield University to look at the training and support that we can give them, so that when they're approached by somebody within the community, and this may be a school teacher, it could be a religious leader, it could simply be somebody who is well respected within the community, to make sure that those individuals have got the knowledge and understanding around processes, the support that's available, so that they are enablers rather than inhibitors to getting information to come forward to us to enable us to support at early stage, which again is vital. And Huddersfield University, in building on their initial research, now supporting us to develop workshops and training through, for example, Bradford Council of Mosques, who are very supportive of this work, the Syrian Association of West Yorkshire, where we've got interest already from community groups to start to take that forward. That will be a three-step approach. The starting point is the general knowledge and awareness that all communities need to have. Then these individuals who are enablers, and the third stage to the approach is to ensure that the people who individuals will then report to, who are most likely our frontline neighbourhood police officers, that's what the research has identified, that they have sufficient information to enable them to take concerns and reports seriously, enable them to give advice around what's likely to happen next, and enable them to get that information to the right stage as quickly as to the right place as quickly as possible within the counter-terrorism unit. That work is ongoing at the moment through a series of video briefings to frontline officers that are rolling over a 10-week period that will introduce all frontline officers and staff across West Yorkshire to a whole range of aspects and issues within the counter-terrorism space, and will enable officers to make those decisions and to provide that support and reassurance to communities that's needed. We will evaluate how effective that's been by running some workshops with officers to test knowledge and understanding from those training videos, and to then evaluate what is needed next. In addition to that, recognising that within the right-wing space and predominantly National Action as a banned terrorist organisation now within the right-wing space, we've supported other CTUs carry out a number of arrests at the back end of last year. 25% of the individuals arrested as part of an operation were serving military personnel. So there's a real focus at the moment for us to do all that we can to support the military, to develop processes, support mechanisms, to identify and deal with signs of extremism within the military. We've already run within the North East region, predominantly within Catterick, which is the largest garrison within Europe, but pulls a lot of young people from right across West Yorkshire and the wider region. We've already done work with senior officers there to brief them, and on the 5th of February we have a large training day event that we're hosting jointly with the military to train and develop frontline managers and I suppose what we would consider to be safeguarding professionals, support professionals that work within military establishments to provide support to young, potentially impressionable frontline soldiers and personnel. The mental health hubs that we've talked about previously, right across both Islamist and extreme right-wing and other areas of extremism, have been reviewed now as a pilot. A bid is ongoing to seek funding to expand those. We have confirmation that the current structure where we have dedicated mental health nurses working within West Yorkshire will continue, but we're looking to expand that if the bid is successful for the next financial year. That would see us have 2 dedicated nurses and 2 dedicated officers and the supervisor to manage complex mental health cases, and that's something that we've seen a growth of in recent months. Finally, just to touch on, as Mr Foster alluded to at the start, individuals now who are no longer able to easily access Syria. We still face the challenge of those individuals who may seek to return, who travelled out to Syria some time ago. And in December, on the 5th of December, we ran a West Yorkshire-wide event for frontline safeguarding professionals and managers, both within policing professionals and partner professionals, along with district senior leadership team representatives, to work through the plans that we've put in place now around how we would manage and support individuals who may return from Syria, covering everything from the initial investigations through to the long-term support that would be required for young people who may be subjected to a life in Syria and some extreme and harrowing and violent scenes. And finally, a good piece of news, and something I've raised on a number of previous meetings. We've been without a coordinator for further and higher education within West Yorkshire. Certainly for the last 2 years. It's a post that's directly funded and managed by, previously was DFE, but now is being appointed by the Home Office. The post that we have in West Yorkshire has now been filled. That individual has started, so we're in early stages around sharing information with them, bringing them up to speed on the ongoing work, and to look at the projects that are then needed within the HE and FE environment with them over the next 12 months. And I'll pause there for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much for that report and an update. As has been said, a really challenging year given the number of national incidents that have been, and we should place on record our recognition and thanks of the role that our counter-terrorist officers play, particularly from within the North East CTU. So thank you very much for that, and that is recognised. Just in terms of a couple of follow-up questions. Actually, just on the last point you raised around the coordinator role now being filled. So that's, in the report it does say it will be hosted by the Department for Education. But in fact, did you say it's a Home Office?
The funding is directly provided by the Home Office. I think the DFE are going to host that post rather than the post being placed out within one of the local authorities who then play lead authority, but that individual working right across the region. Because of some of the complexities around sort of local policy and governance within local authorities, it was deemed more appropriate to take that post under the DFE, directly fund it. So what we will have is a much greater, I think, ability for that person to flex right across West Yorkshire, rather than sometimes we see the influences that direct appointment by a local authority would have to draw somebody in very locally. And what we don't see is a specific local authority area or district where there is a HEFE threat that is sort of more prevalent. So the important thing is to make sure we get the coverage right across the county. Right,
so that's good news. So has that person actually taken up posts now?
Taking up posts, they've been in contact, we've got meetings arranged with them, and they've already started to attend some of the events that we've already talked about. But all of the, I suppose all of that, the research and understanding that we've got, a lot of it will play out because it applies to young people, sort of 18 into their early 20s, that will be individuals who go to HE and FE organisations for further training and education. So absolutely pivotal really that we get all of that work and understanding accelerated through some of the sort of local approaches and the processes within colleges.
Okay, thanks for that, and we potentially look forward to linking in with that person as well around some of the joint work. Just in relation to the work carried out with Huddersfield University around the barriers to reporting and the pilot work that's been identified, that's been carried out in the communities to identify who is likely to be approached for advice around certain individuals. Has this actually now concluded as a pilot?
No, it's very much ongoing. Okay. It will probably take us over the next 12 months to get some tangible results because the numbers of reports in each individual district are so small. So we're starting with some work, as described, in Bradford with the Bradford Council for Mosques and with the Syrian Association of West Yorkshire that will give us some opportunities to start to test the learning that Paul Thomas's research developed within those communities. So we've already had some events with those, and as we identify more people within those communities who are potentially the go-to people, we will include those in training. So we will have by the end of the year, hopefully, a number of positive role models, advocates, who will then help us to get a better reach into communities, but that is going to take several months to develop that cadre of people, I suppose.
But there's been some early signs of success as far as you're concerned, yeah.
Absolutely. In terms of the additional, with every bit of additional knowledge and understanding people have, what the feedback we get at the end of every session is how much more confident individuals feel in the processes, and a lot of that is about the transparency of the counter-terrorism unit, being visible in communities, talking to people like me turning up and showing that you're not faceless, hidden in a closed, secure building, and in that respect, people are instantly more trusting simply by having that contact, and the more we continue to do that, the more impact it will have. Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for that. And just to follow on then from that, so I was pleased to see the report talking about the value of face-to-face meetings with local police officers, and obviously steps to train and equip frontline officers with the understanding to try and deal with concerns around extremism, given that neighbourhood policing is, clearly at the heart of how we police. However, given the sort of broad range of duties and responsibilities of our neighbourhood policing team officers, is there a potential risk that we might be asking them to be specialists in too many high-risk areas?
As we're starting to answer this, what we're not asking frontline neighbourhood officers to be is specialists in counter-terrorism. That's what you've got the dedicated prevent team working within the North East Counter-Terrorism Unit there to deliver. What it does recognise, however, is that radicalisation extremism is another safeguarding vulnerability faced by communities, and it's absolutely essential that all officers are equipped to deal with all sorts of safeguarding issues that they're going to encounter in their day-to-day work. And what we're trying to do is ensure that when an officer encounters an issue, that they have sufficient knowledge and understanding of those risks to be able to spot those genuine concerns and genuine cases, and that they then know how to get the specialist support that you've touched on through the prevent teams. What the research at Huddersfield University has shown is that if, as with, a lot of this is obvious common sense stuff, as with all areas of crime and public reporting, but if, when a member of the public makes a report, they'll do so in the way that they feel most comfortable doing, and that is to a frontline neighbourhood officer. That's what the research has shown. And that if they don't get somebody at the end of that report who takes their concerns seriously and is able to reassure them, then they either won't be fully forthcoming with the information that we need, or they won't come back to us and report again. And if they then tell somebody else about that bad experience, there is the knock-on and the issue that we have in breaking this cycle of extremists being able to infiltrate our communities. So for me, it's absolutely essential that we equip frontline officers so that they can provide the service to the public that is needed to tackle what is a very, very dangerous issue within our communities.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. It's certainly a view that I hold as well around the important role of neighbourhood policing in dealing with some of these issues at the local level. Just commentary, I guess, on the military aspect that you raised. That is a concern, around the 25% of the, did you say arrests or?
The arrests, yeah.
Yeah.
What I will say, to caveat that, is that we are talking relatively small numbers, so we are only talking a handful of people. But in terms of, if there are only a relatively small number of people being arrested nationally at the moment in relation to some of the extreme right-wing national action issues, and the significant proportion of those are coming from within the military, then it's really important that we focus in there, because national action as an organisation, we know, target young, wide working personnel within the military.
Yeah, and obviously some more significant arrests last week as part of the national or the national action network. So it's good that you are acting on that intelligence when it comes in. Jane, was there something on the mental health aspect you wanted to?
Nick covered that, thank you, yeah.
Right. Okay, I don't think there's anything else I wanted to ask on that, but thank you very much for that update, and clearly a lot of really good and progressive work going on in a high risk area, but thank you, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.